James Knight is a dentist in Iowa, and he had this stellar female employee by the name of Melissa Nelson for 10 years, okay? And apparently he found her irresistible, she was very attractive, and their professional relationship began to become a little more personal, and they started sending text messages to one another, they started basically talking about their sex lives with one another. They're both married, so keep that in mind.
But understand that she was not being flirtatious with him necessarily, and they were not talking about sex with each other. They were talking about their separate sex lives. She says, look, man, I look at him as a father figure. So now you take it with a grain of salt or whatever based on the text messages. But, of course, the person who didn't take it that way was the dentist's wife.
Right. So the dentist's wife sees the text messages. In one text message, James Knight basically says to his employee, she was talking about how she hasn't had sex in her relationship for a while, whatever. He referred to her as a Ferrari in the garage.
Lamborghini, I believe.
Lamborghini in the garage that never gets driven.
So, no, this guy's hilarious, man. Like, we can't tell really from the stories what her views are. She says, look, I got no sexual feelings about him whatsoever.
I have to be honest, the sense I got was that she was responding to the text messages. Listen, if you know your boss has a thing for you and you don't want it to pass certain boundaries, then you don't respond by telling him how often you have sex with your husband. Okay?
All right, so that's for that's for people to judge, etc. But his intentions are clear.
His intentions are clear. So anyway, after 10 years of being a stellar employee, James Knight decides to fire her because his wife found the text messages. They go to his pastor and consult with the pastor, and the pastor tells them, well, if this woman is putting your marriage in jeopardy, then you should fire her. So he does fire her. He fires her after 10 years, okay? And this case goes all the way to the Iowa State Supreme Court. And an all-male judge panel basically makes the decision that he was right in firing her for being too irresistible.
Awesome. Okay, now, interesting. Well, so some of the things that he said and got away with was, if you wear clothes that tight, well, then you shouldn't be surprised when my pants are bulging.
Yeah.
Okay, and he says, if my pants are bulging, that means your clothes are too tight. Okay, now look, here's the person who wanted to get her fired in the first place. Let's keep it real. The wife. Okay, she got the text messages. She was all over his ass. This is my interpretation, but you all know it's true. And then he was like, me? No, I know. Look, okay, I said the Lamborghini line about, I want to test drive that Lamborghini, put her in driver, you know what I mean? I got to bulge in the pants. Okay, so yeah, I said those things, but it's not my fault. I find her irresistible. Okay, so he says, of course, honey, I'm going to fire her. Of course I am, right? And then they go to the all-male judge panel. They're like, well, look, dude, she is kind of hot. I mean, that would be kind of hard to resist. So there she goes. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, is this right?
I feel like this story has not been reported correctly. Okay?
Really? Interesting.
That's and by the way, I don't think that she should have been fired, okay? So I don't think that anyone should be fired based on their looks, whether they're unattractive or attractive. That should not play a role at all, okay? Now
I totally agree.
Now I'm gonna get the fucking comments like, oh, well, you got hired because you're attractive. No,
really?
That's
Somebody's gonna say that?
Yeah, people, don't be a dick. Okay? All right, but I don't think that should play a role at all, right? But in this case, I think the reason why they made that ruling was because there was tension in the workplace after the wife found out. I think that she did respond to some of his advances. I don't know if they actually got physical. I don't know any of that. But I do know that obviously she responded to some of his text messages and their relationship began to become more personal. So that's probably why the judges made the ruling that they did.
Morally, he's totally in the wrong because, look, he gets to keep the job. She doesn't get to keep the job, even though he was the pervy wanker. Right? So that makes no sense. Now, there's an update on the story, though. There is a little bit of justice when you talk about the moral aspect of this. Apparently, the people on Yelp have decided to mete out their own justice.
Yeah.
And they're all over his ass
on
Yelp saying, don't go to this dentist, he's a creep, yada, yada.
Yeah, so a bunch of people are going on Yelp. They're giving him 1-star reviews, and they're basically saying, well, since this guy doesn't have any self-control, he might actually stab you in the side of your face with a scalpel.
Well, I don't know if you do that, but...
But of course there's exaggeration there. But people are voicing their opinions on this ruling, and they have the right to do so.
Hey, free market, baby, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So then that's exactly how it works. So probably he's losing a lot of customers. So legally you won, but you've been yelped.
You've been yelped.